Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan, and filling in today for Vince is King.
Hello everybody.
King, thanks for being here with me, dude.
Not a problem.
Today we're going to be talking Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna talk about we're kind of just gonna cover the gambit, really. We're gonna talk about when we think Sonic was cool, when we think Sonic stopped being cool, if Sonic is cool at all right now, and how we've been feeling about the kind of pseudo comeback craze that's been going on lately with the mix of old school Sonic with newer Sonic, and what we think ought to happen with it in the future. So, King, when was the last Sonic game you thought was super awesome and had very few problems?
Super awesome with very few problems. Probably Sonic Adventure.
Okay, that's what a lot of people call it too. Some people say Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad game.
No, that game just had a lot of problems.
Well, it added a lot of modes that I felt were pretty anti-Sonic. As in my opinion, and I'm sure you and I aren't always gonna cross in the same places on this, but for me, I felt like the place where Sonic went wrong, besides the fact that I think 3D Sonic is kind of a hard thing to get my mind around, even just in general 3D Sonic, where I feel like it's hard to move that fast in 3 dimensions and platform well. But regardless of that, I also think that as soon as Sonic has to run around trying to find things, I lose it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, for me, Sonic Adventure 2 had a problem with not only the modes, but the abundance of characters.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was just stretched out to an abysmal form in Sonic Heroes,
mm-hmm.
where that game ripped my heart out and then stomped on it multiple times. To give a quick story, my dad gave me an option of, to get a new game, I'd have to get straight A's. And I worked really hard to get those straight A's. And I went to a store not knowing what I wanted, and then magically I saw Sonic Heroes. And being a lifelong Sonic fan, I picked that, went home, and then played through every group of characters they had, and went from Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, which was crap, but it was the cream of the crap, and then just went down and down and down until I was in a ball of tears because that game was that bad.
I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. I don't love it. I thought that the initial conceit is kind of a bad one. That we're gonna have 3 characters all kind of linked together, and you can switch between them, but they're all kind of moving at the same time. And I don't know, it slows everything down and makes it kind of complicated. The only thing I liked about that game over some of the other 3D Sonics was that at least most of it was about platforming.
Oh yeah.
A lot of the problems I had with some of them previously was that there were too many gimmicks that got in the way. It was like you can't just run through a level and get rings and find the goal anymore. Like, no, we've got to have these parts where you got to run around trying to find emeralds and like. And it's basically just a big game of hot and cold, and you've got these like extra things with the flickas or whatever. I don't need any of that stuff, man. Like it's too overly complicated. Like, just give me the hedgehog running. That's all I want.
Well, you get things like Sonic Unleashed, where half the game is okay, where the 3D platforming is not bad. It's not the best thing ever, but it's passable. And then you get the night version, which is god-awful werewolf combat that should have never been invented. And then
and some of it is nearly unplayable.
Yeah.
And there were bits of that game I didn't know what I was doing. I think I played that game for a total of an hour and a half and quit.
Yeah, and then you get the spaceship battle, which is just cutscene. I mean, not cutscene, but quick time event after quick time event. It's just like Typing of the Dead, but not fun at all.
Would have been great, by the way, if Typing of the Dead had been a franchise.
That would have been very fun. You type a word, zombie dies. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just every couple of years you bought another one of those.
Yeah.
I'd do it. I would. Typing of the Dead's hilarious.
Anyway. Get that to Activision. They'll make that happen.
Yeah, that would have been pretty great. House of the Dead, there's a series that you can't go wrong with.
Yeah. But, yeah, like, recently they've gotten better with, first Sonic Colors, which I thought was okay, but I think they went a little too Mario Galaxy with it.
Oh, absolutely. All the way to the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like, was that necessary? Couldn't we have had something that sounded a little bit more Sonic, just to separate it out a little bit? Yeah.
Like, I love Mario and I love Sonic. I don't need the two combined.
No.
And then the most recent one, Sonic Generation, it was nostalgically great, but as a game on the whole, it was just pretty good. It was alright. It wasn't the best thing I've ever played. It didn't give me... There were moments where I was playing it and I had kind of the same feeling I had when I was a kid, but then I went and I downloaded Sonic 2 on the PSN, and I enjoyed that much more, because I still feel that, on the whole, it's still a much better game.
I'll be honest with you, this is entirely a taste issue, so nobody lynch me for not being objective enough on this, because I realize that I'm of the earlier generation of Sonic fans. I was disappointed with Sonic Generations because it didn't do what I was hoping it would do, which was have a lot more of the older levels that I enjoyed. And I can't expect that, because the whole point of it was to bridge the gap and have, stuff from both generations. Now, having said that, I think that it went a little too far the other direction. I really enjoyed the first 25 minutes of that game. I really loved that. If that had been the whole game, I mean, if they kept going that direction, I would have really had a lot more fun with it. Where the first 3 levels of that game are all Genesis levels. And it was really fun to see the 3D versions of the Genesis levels. I think they did a wonderful job, a magnificent job with those. Yeah. I was really impressed with it. And then the next 2 maps, I think there's only really 3 sets of maps in that game.
Yeah.
I forget. I think I played through almost the whole game. I rented it, so I'm not sure. I didn't buy it. But then, I get to the second map, and it starts with stuff from Sonic Adventure 2, I think, and then kind of moves on. And I was like, okay, all right, I was expecting this, but I was hoping at some point it would move back to at least one more Genesis level, and it never did, And I was disappointed with it.
What I think they should have done, what would have made it a great game, was take everything from Genesis and CD, and then make HD versions of all the original levels, and then take those same levels and make all of them 3D as well. That way... Well,
see, I think that would have been really cool, too. I think that they thought that they were building on the nostalgia for some of the gamers who weren't into the 2D games. And so I'm with you. For my money, that would have been an amazing game. But I think that they thought that they were being cool by also doing the reverse, of having the 2D versions of the 3D levels.
When I first heard about it, what I thought they were going to do was what I just said. Take all the old Genesis and CD levels and then make HD versions of the 2D version, and then recreate 3D versions of that, which I would have been all for. And I was actually planning on, ordering the European version, because you get a cool collector's edition with a little Sonic, statue. Then I read more into it and found out what it was really going to be, and I was like, I'm just going to rent this when it comes out, which is what I did. And
see, I almost went out and bought it too, and I was really glad I didn't, because I think I would have been more disappointed with it had I bought it. I was glad I played it. Don't get me wrong, I had a good time with it, but it's not something I could see putting in several times.
It's not like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Sonic CD. Those are all games that I go back to over and over and over again. Get them on multiple platforms.
Yep, me too.
Because they're that good. These newer ones, I'm like, I don't really need them. I want them to recreate what I had as a child, or I don't know. It's just, I don't know what they can do to, because the thing about Sonic is, when you had a Genesis, their motto was, Sega does what Nintendo don't. And that was the thing about Sonic, is that Mario was a very joyful, gleeful character.
That's a really good point.
Sonic was a very cool, that's why you had that jazzy, almost like jazzy, kind of metal, almost a little hip-hop, kind of really cool. If you looked at the...
Yeah, it was very contemporary.
Yeah, if you looked at the two, Sonic would be the guy with the leather jacket and the sunglasses, and Mario would be the guy, sweeping floors like a good, humanitarian. something like
Yeah, or Mario feels a little more conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I think the obvious extension of that is that then after a while it was like, okay, Mario has Mario Kart, so Sonic has to have something like that, and Mario has Mario Galaxy, so Sonic has to have something like that. That's not what you wanted to see happen with that character.
No. The Sonic should always be a fast, adrenaline rush character, and when they moved to 3D, they kind of took some of that speed and adrenaline away.
I think they had to.
And then
that's the problem with doing it 3D. I think that the biggest mistake they made was not doing both things simultaneously. What they should have done is they should have had those 3D games, and then they should have kept going past Sonic and Knuckles and doing a few more of those.
Well, I think what they did was they took the 2D stuff and put it on handheld with things like Sonic,
You're right.
Sonic Rush.
Yeah, except I don't like Sonic Rush.
I like the first one. The second one had problems, but
okay. See, I didn't play the first one.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, I don't know. I think the issue with the second one for me is that I kept falling from high places. Like I just could not stay frickin' on the ground in that game. Maybe I was just bad at it. I don't know. I'll tell you what though. They got it right when they did the DS version of Sonic Colors though. That game is very fun. I don't know. What's that?
I only played the Wii version, so.
Yeah. Well, I played the DS version of it, and it's and what I like about it is that they don't try to make that the same game somehow on a handheld. They take the gimmick of the color system and they keep that in there, and then they just add that to a traditional 2D Sonic game. So it kind of feels like you're playing like Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles with the color system built in, and it works really well. It was an extremely fun game. I was really impressed with it.
And what's funny about that is, if memory serves me right, the DS version of Colors was made by the people that made Rush.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, Rush wasn't terrible. I just couldn't stay on the freaking ground. Like, the mechanics were all okay. I don't know. Well, I guess I had more problems with level designs than that, I guess is what I'm getting at. Where like, I get to a part and I wasn't sure where I was supposed to go and that kind of thing. But Colors was really fluid. I felt like the level designs in that were absolutely fantastic. What is your, I'm getting off the track. I'm going to move around a little bit. What is your favorite of the Genesis games?
Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
That 2?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right, fair enough.
That game fills me with so much joy every time I play it. It's so much fun. I remember all the levels, pretty much perfectly. I love one of my favorite parts of that game was the Chaos Emerald races that you would do. And I loved, hitting the little checkpoints and then jumping up in the spiral star, then go dun da 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 dun dun da 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 da.
Right.
And just everything. I mean, everything about that game was pretty much at the time perfect for me, and even now I still think it's a great game, and it's a perfect example of 2D platformers done right.
When I was a kid and I played that for the first time, and I had played Sonic 1 before I played that, and was a huge fan of that game, but I think my mind was blown by Hydrocity Zone. That's quite the level.
Yeah.
The music, but also the level design, the way it mixed water with land was really quite different from anything I'd seen before.
Maybe it's just me, but Sonic 2 always felt like it had more water levels than any other platforming game I've ever played.
Yeah, and weirdly it wasn't irritating.
Yeah.
Like they were playable. The thing is, I would almost put Sonic 1 over Sonic 2, and I think part of that's a nostalgia thing. But I think Sonic 1 is one of the first video games that wasn't an NES game that I ever played. And so it has, I don't know, it's got a warm place in my heart. I also like the challenge of playing a Sonic game without the Sonic spin.
Yeah.
And I always got irritated later on when they would port it, but they would put the Sonic spin in it. I'm like, oh no, the game's too easy when you do that. That's a much harder game without the Sonic spin. But anyway, I would almost put Sonic 1 over Sonic 2. If it weren't for the major water level in that, which I just really don't like very much. I have a tendency to put that game in and play until I get to that level and play for a few minutes and just quit. I don't like that water level. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I think part of it is that it slows Sonic down too much. Yeah. It's not just that he's in water, it's that there are so many, like, projectiles that get thrown at you in that level.
Yeah.
It's not fun. I don't like that. I also don't like the boss in that.
The other thing I loved about Sonic 2 was the music. I think that's probably the best.
But see, that's the reason I put 1 over 2 sometimes, because it's got my favorite video game music of all time ever.
See, I love all the music that is in Sonic 2. I love the Chemical Plant theme. Bum, ba, 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 you know.
Yeah, right.
Casino, which spawned casinos forever in Sonic.
Oh, yeah, sure. Did you ever wonder why there wasn't just, like, a whole game devoted to casinos? Like, they could have done a Sonic game that was just an entire casino game, easily.
I'm sure they probably thought about it at least once.
I don't think it's fair that we never got a game where you're Sonic and you run around a roulette wheel. I don't think that it makes no sense that never happened.
Somebody should invent that. It would make sense. It would make perfect sense. You know, it's Sonic 4.
That needs to happen.
Yeah. But after Sonic 2, my favorite one after that might be Sonic CD. Even though
my wife, her favorite Sonic game is Sonic CD.
Yeah.
And I did not understand that for a while, and I've played it through a few times, and now I am hooked on it too. It's quite a good game.
Yeah, and it's the first time
the time travel system is so interesting.
It works great, and I love how the levels are actually different. It's not just they changed the color of the background. It's just the levels are literally... You go through a past level, and it's one thing, and then you go through a future level, and things are in a completely different area. There's new paths that you can take, and that's...
Yeah, and they earn a lot of authority, too, by showing you where the rings would be if you were in the other time zone. I got so confused the first time I played it because I didn't understand what was going on. And so I was like, why can't I get to those rings? Why would you put rings there? That's stupid. And then after a while I realized, oh, the rings don't change.
Nope.
Everything else does. That's pretty good design.
Yeah. And
very complex.
And the other thing I liked is that they added a villain that I think worked in Metal Sonic. I think that Metal Sonic made sense.
I didn't realize Metal Sonic was, I didn't realize that was his first appearance.
Yeah. And
do you know if that was his first appearance, period, or did he appear in the comics before he appeared there?
I don't know. I think that was his first appearance, period, but I might be wrong.
Okay. All right.
But like, he's the first character they have that really made the guy that makes sense, to be like a new villain. And then later on they add new people like, Shadow and Gray, and then they turn Shadow into like a rival, and it's abundance of Sonic. You're not Mario. You don't have a family tree of other people that can join you. You don't need,
No, you don't need a million.
Yeah.
I mean, I was always cool with Sonic with Tails and Knuckles, but I don't think you have to go much further than that.
I think Tails and Knuckles work great because they added something new, something different to the gameplay experience. And then you added all these other characters, and I'm like, they're just copies of Sonic or just really bad...
Or somebody else, yeah.
Bad, annoying characters. Like, Amy, you're not Princess Peach, go away.
I was okay. I do have to say, though, that I was a big fan of Knuckles Chaotix. It's got its problems. I don't know if you've ever played it. Have you ever played that?
No, I've not, actually.
Okay, Knuckles Chaotix was on the 32X. And so, you had to either, these days, of course, you have to either port it. You have to either, get it on an emulator, or you have to be crazy enough to buy an add-on to a system that only had like a dozen or two games, and only a couple of them are even worth playing. But anyway, I don't know. Knuckles Chaotix had kind of a weird system. I don't know if you've looked into it at all, King, where it had all these extra characters, and I liked a lot of them. That's where a lot of the characters that you probably didn't like from what's that game we were talking about earlier with the system with the three that flipped around?
Oh, Heroes.
Thank you. Yeah, that's where some of those characters come from. The crocodile and the bee and those characters. Those all started in Knuckles Chaotix, and what they did there is they had the system where you had two characters that were basically linked together like they were handcuffed together, holding rings, and then there was this big magical looking rope between them, and it was elastic basically, and so if you like went up. If you went up the side of something and you came back down, it would bounce your other character forward, and so you had to deal with that. I liked that system. The mechanics of it worked better than it sounds like they probably did, but the levels were too open for a Sonic game.
Okay.
Where it was. The platforming was decent. It felt like you were in a big giant box and you had to find your way from one end to the other. It didn't feel like a fluid level. If you played as the bee,
yeah.
You could just fly to the top and float all the way to the end.
Okay. Well,
a lot of the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the same problem that Mario Sunshine had. That's you have to be careful with a platformer and how you design your level. Level design and platforming is key. There are two things you have to worry about in platformers: character control and level design. If you mess one of the two up, you completely ruin the game.
And again, I don't think they completely ruined that game. I think it's still a pretty fun game.
Oh no,
but it had a couple. It actually has my favorite, my very favorite end boss battle of any Sonic game ever. It's just like it's one thing after another. It's crazy all the stuff that it does, and there's a bunch of there's a giant hand you have to jump on top of, and there's all this stuff. It's Mecha Sonic, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's another Mecha Sonic game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't talking about that game being ruined by level design and platform.
Oh, sure.
I'm talking about
No, I was just throwing that out there because you hadn't played it.
Yeah.
So I was trying to take up for a little bit because that has its problems. But yeah, I'd play it again.
Well, I mean, one of my big issues with the vast amount of characters is with Mario, they don't really talk. So they're just kind of...
But you're okay with that.
They're kind of just there, and it's like, okay, Mario lives in a world. I can accept that. But with Sonic, you have these characters that are talking, and, if maybe they had good voice actors or script writers, I wouldn't mind, but you don't have Amy Hennig or Ken Levine writing your story.
Well, and it's just a waste of time. Like how often have you played a 3D Sonic game? Well, actually, I could answer the question of how often have you played a 3D Sonic game with I could count the hours on both hands probably, but like how many times have you played one of those games and just went, forget it, I'm not gonna pay attention to the story, I don't care, you just skip past all that and get to the level.
Every time.
Every time, yeah. Who cares? Yeah. And to be fair, I'm that way with most platformers because I don't feel like platformers need a story. I don't feel like I mean, look, they can. I mean, I know you're a huge video game fanatic, and you're probably like, well, some of them it works okay. But I mean, like Mario, do you really need a bunch of cutscenes?
No, you don't.
No, you don't. And I don't think you do with Sonic either.
No, you don't. You just, I mean, Sonic needs to just stop Robotnik from turning creatures into robots.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that was still the premise.
Yeah, I mean, that should be the premise. It worked.
By the way, you know how we were talking, I gotta say this real quick because I think it's kind of funny. You know how we were talking about the casino zone earlier?
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever did very much with casino zones in the 3D games. I think there was one.
Sonic Heroes had.
In Sonic Heroes, yeah. But like it just seems to me like the place that it would make the most sense for that to go would be like you're in a 3D Sonic game and you're running through a casino, and then every now and again they make you stop and play Keno. Like that's what that would be like.
You're gonna get kids addicted to Keno Cap.
Yeah, exactly. You're running and you're running. You're like, wow, I'm having a really good time running through this level, and then it's like, oh, Sonic's got to play some Keno.
You know, that actually surprised me.
With some kind of puzzle, something.
That surprised me about Sonic Colors. You're in an amusement park. Like, wouldn't they...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, that's what's so funny. Believe it or not, I still have not gotten around to playing Sonic Colors on the Wii. I've only played the DS game.
Okay.
I just didn't get around to it. I should get it. Everybody said good things about it. I just haven't gotten around to it.
It's not bad. It's just they tried too hard to be Mario Galaxy, and the thing is, it's not a bad game. It's just not really a Sonic game. And the thing is, if you're gonna play a Mario Galaxy game, get Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Those are great. You don't
Yeah, and that's the thing is that there's already 2 of them.
Yeah.
It's not even really adding anything. It's like, no, we already have like about as much of those as you would ever want, you know?
And also during the time period when that came out, Donkey Kong Country Return came out, so...
Yeah, and you can't beat that game. You can't begin to beat that game.
Not if you're Sonic Colors. If you're Mario Galaxy 2, you can do that.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that, but okay. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, though, is that you're kind of comparing apples and oranges there, right? I mean, like, I think it's difficult to compare a 2D side-scroller to a 3D platformer. But I don't know. I think that as far as 2D platformers go, Donkey Kong Country Return is like probably in my top 3 of ever at this point. It's so good.
It's very good. I still prefer the original Donkey Kong Country, just because I missed certain things about it. Like,
oh, that's fair. No, that's fair. And I mean, yeah, that's still a really great game. I think in places they improved on it. Believe it or not, I really think that. And I do miss the bad guy in that.
Yeah.
It said they couldn't use him. I think they actually just literally couldn't use him. But I kind of missed that about it. And I missed the water levels.
Yeah.
Because they said that I read an interview with the producers of that game, and they said that they decided not to include the water levels because it didn't work really very well with their mechanics.
Yeah.
And I'm not real sure what they're talking about. I think they would have been okay with it.
But I mean, speaking of Donkey Kong Country Returns, that's the perfect example of what Sonic Generation should have been.
Should have been,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the difference is that, once again, is that Sonic had a pretty successful 3D run, even though, the games aren't that good, people still bought them, whereas Donkey Kong never had that.
Well, the thing about Sonic is I think that it holds such a special place in people's hearts. If you were a Sega kid, you love Sega. You're still buying Sega games today. I know I am.
And, sure.
They're talking.
I buy Virtua Fighter every time.
They're talking about Jet Grind Radio coming out this summer. I'm buying that. They're talking about Shenmue coming out sometime in the future. I'm gonna get that. I bought all the old Sonic Genesis games on my PS3 and Wii, and if you're a Sonic, if you're
laugh at me if you want to. I play Monkey Ball.
Hey, that's fine. That's cool.
I like Monkey Ball. That's a Sega property.
I bought their new stuff with like Vanquish and Yakuza, and the point I'm getting at, if you're a Sega person, you are diehard and you will stick to their franchises no matter how much they fall.
Yep, you're right. And I mean we've all been hoodwinked, right? Those of us that were huge Sega fans or Sonic fans back in the day, because every time they put one out, we're like, I know it's gonna suck, but I want to know. So we all tried, knowing it wasn't going to be any good. We tried the Shadow the Hedgehog, and we tried Sonic and the Black Knight. We tried this stuff. I'm like, really?
I really didn't want to think about those two.
Actually, to be fair, I did not play Sonic and the Black Knight, but I did play Shadow the Hedgehog, and I played half an hour of it, and I went, I still can't get my head around the fact that I'm holding guns. I can't do it. I'm like, how am I supposed to run this fast in 3 dimensions and aim?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I want to know why Sonic has a sword. I like sword, and I like Sonic. The two don't mix.
Yeah. I mean, I like. I can't think of a good example because the thing I almost said was really gross.
Yeah. Well, speaking of new game mechanics,
I kind of like chicken liver, and I kind of like jelly beans, but I'm not gonna mix them,
Oh, that would be gross. But
anyway.
Sonic mechanics they've added that I think that just don't work, like the auto aim feature they have.
Oh yeah.
One, it requires no skill. And 2, it completely defeats the purpose of Sonic. Sonic is supposed to be a fast character.
Yeah.
And when you just, make him halt, and then aim and then jump, you're ruining it. You really are. That right there completely took me out of Sonic 4 Episode 1. Like, when I started that game, I'm like, this is so awesome. And then the first couple times I did that to an enemy, I'm like, I can't do this.
I guess what I did was I psyched myself out about it ahead of time because I knew that mechanic was going to be in there. I read about it in Game Informer before it came out, and I went, all right, they're doing the honing thing. I guess I'm just going to have to be okay with this. And so, I psyched myself out, and I played it, and I was all right with it. And I even recommended it on Recommends. I was okay with it.
I know.
And then, I know you did. And what was weird about it, and then I went, well, maybe King's right. What was weird about it, I played it all the way through, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun. When I played it the second time, I didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah.
It was very strange.
Well,
and are they finally putting out another episode of that?
Yeah.
Did I read that somewhere? They're finally doing another one? Why did it take a year and a half? What's that about?
It's episodic. Granted, I know someone's going to comment, like, well, Half-Life is episodic, and we don't have episode 3 yet. You're right. But this is the Sonic game. It's a 2D platformer. It should not take a year and a half to make.
Shouldn't take a year and a half, yeah. Exactly. Because the thing is, the first episode is not a complete game, of course, because it's episodic, like you said.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, I would expect one out at least every, half a year, if nothing else.
Yeah. It should come out every 6 months, and that should have been the model. If they were going to do that, that's how they should have done it.
And get it done. I don't think they're gonna sell very well after this.
No.
I think that the people will have lost interest, especially after they release Sonic Generations.
Yeah. That was a game that, I'm part of the NoobTube gaming forum. It's a forum, by gamers, for gamers, blah, blah, blah. And on there, Sonic Generation was voted as one of the top 3 games to not suck. So, like, it was a surprise that the game did not suck.
Oh, I see, yeah. Nobody thought it was going to work.
Yeah, and then people were like, oh my god, this is awesome. This is like what I had when I was a kid. I halfway felt that,
Yeah, I halfway felt that too. And honestly, like I said, I actually really enjoyed the gameplay. I thought the mechanics were fine. I had no problem with the mechanics anywhere, believe it or not. I was totally cool with it. I just didn't think it was long enough.
The only thing that kind of bugged me about that game...
It wasn't very long.
The only thing that bugged me about that game was the whole, like, street sliding thing they had in there.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That was kind of weird, now that I think about it.
But then I remembered...
It took a while to get used to that.
But then I remember Sonic Riders, which was another pointless game.
Pointless. What was weird about Sonic Riders is that I actually think it's kind of fun. It just shouldn't be Sonic.
Yeah, I think the fact that they made it a Sonic game just put me off of it completely. Because it's one of those things where I'm like...
Oh, most people say it's terrible, and I'm like, well, I played it, and I thought it was alright. I just didn't understand why it was Sonic characters.
God. And they have so many Sonic characters. You know what? The only other time outside of the game lore that I've liked random Sonic characters was when I was a kid watching Sonic Underground. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really care for it, but I saw it.
Well, I was 6, and...
Well, yeah, I'm not... Well, the thing about it is I didn't see it when it was on. I saw it later. I saw the other one. That was one of those weird things where they had 2 shows running congruently, which is strange. They had the jokey, silly one that felt more like Sonic.
Yeah.
And they had Sonic Underground, which was like trying to be edgy, but it was weird. I was like, all right.
And then they had Sonic X years later, which had every single character in the Sonic history.
Yeah, which had amazing animation and nothing else I cared about.
Exactly.
I saw one episode of that and went, this looks so pretty, I'm never watching this again. It was a very strange reaction I had to it. I was like, I cannot believe what this looks like. I don't care about anything that's happening.
The funny thing is, right before that comes on, you watch the Ninja Turtles show, which is really good, and then you watch that and you're like, oh.
Why couldn't it have been more than that? More like that? Why couldn't have we had like Robotnik come out in it was like a shadowy figure, and every time he walked out as a shadowy figure, we heard some sound effect in the background that goes whoa.
That would have been sweet.
Why is it in that Ninja Turtle show that nobody knows where the Foot's hideout is? It is the tallest building in the city. And it has a huge logo on it.
Plot convenience.
And no one ever notices. It's the strangest thing. It's like if I was walking past that building, I would point it and go, that looks evil. that looks ominous, and it looks evil. I wonder if evil people live there. And then I would start imagining that there was this guy who hired a scientist, and every time the scientist failed him, he cut off one of his body parts. Oh wait, no, that's what happened. All right.
Didn't they used to have like a cloud hovering over it a lot of times?
Yeah, all the time, and it wouldn't matter if the rest of the episode was sunny, whatever the weather was. Nope, it had a... Well, that's the thing, is that even nature realized how evil this building was. Well, I don't know why we're talking about that. Hey, one more thing I wanted to mention about Sonic before we go.
Yeah.
I don't understand how Sonic Spinball didn't become a franchise.
That was fun.
What a good game, and I mean, freaking hard. But, like, how was there never another one of those?
You know, I don't think... You know, maybe it's just me, but I think that before that there was, like, a pinball craze. And then they kind of made it to kind of match that, and then the pinball craze was over.
Yeah, you're probably right, but the thing about it was, it wasn't simply just, like, it wasn't just pinball.
Yeah.
Like, it had a pinball dynamic, but I mean, like, it seems like, and I don't know how popular it was. I mean, I know everybody I knew that played Sonic played it. I don't know if it was very popular or not, and maybe that's why they didn't make any more of them, but I just feel like the dynamic of that game should have been enough to propel it, even if pinball wasn't that popular.
Well, I mean, I like that. I also, and this might just be me, but I liked Dr. Eggman's, that Jelly Bean game where it was like...
Oh, yeah, Robotnik's Big Mean Bean Machine,
yes,
yeah.
I love that.
I never played that more than once or twice. I don't remember much about it. I remember when I was a kid, I played it, and I went, oh, this feels too much like Dr. Mario, and so I just didn't play it. But...
You know, funny, I never played Dr. Mario, but I played that all the time, the Dr. Eggman one.
Have you played Dr. Mario since?
No, I haven't. I still have not played it.
Wow, you've never played Dr. Mario? See, I mean, that's one of the best puzzle games of all time.
Is it on the Wii?
Actually, yeah, there's a version that you can download from the Virtual Console. There's a Virtual Console only version.
Okay.
That's quite good. It was released around the same time as Tetris Party.
Oh, okay.
Of which I bought both of, because they're both quite good.
I mean, I do love a good puzzle game. And Sonic, please get better. You're trying hard, and we appreciate that. Just
yeah. I'm glad with I've been happy with the direction for the last couple of years. I mean, it feels like that we're gaining towards something.
Stop with the homing attack. Stop with all your friends talking. You can have them, just keep them quiet. And you can do 3D, but make sure there's a lot of 2D stuff in there. And then mostly stick with 2D, because that's what you're really good at. And, oh yeah, make music like you did on the Genesis, because that music was great.
And they've never had anything like that since.
And we will all be happy. And we will buy you, because we're Sega fanboys, and we will always probably be.
Yeah, I can't get away from Sega. I've always loved it. I still have every system I ever had. Except for the 32X, so I can't play Knuckles Chaotix. I don't know what happened to that, but I don't have it anymore. You know, I went and priced one a couple weeks ago.
How much?
Just because I'm a crazy person.
How much?
Because I was like, I really want to play Knuckles Chaotix. I'm going to buy a whole system for this one game.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was like $60 or $70.
Oh, okay.
And then Knuckles Chaotix was almost that much. It was like 40 or 50. And at the used game store I went to, and I was like, man, I mean, like, I could just emulate it. I don't want to. I mean, I want the authenticity. I want to just have this, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend $100 to play Knuckles Chaotix. I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, what sucks for me is that when I got my PS2, over time I eventually bought the Sonic Mega Collection Plus, which had all the Sonic games, you know, Dr. Eggman, Mean Bean Machine, and
which they did a great job with putting all that together. I mean, it was really great that they put everything on it they did, and then they had some weird unlockables too.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Some really cool, bizarre handheld stuff.
And because I had that, my mom decided it was a good idea to sell my Genesis in a yard sale.
Oh no!
So that's gone.
Oh, that sucks. See, but those are pretty cheap. You can get one of those easy.
Well, I'm thinking I want to buy a Dreamcast so I can have one of those. I want. If I ever become rich, I'm buying everything Sega's ever done. Just because.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I've still got my Dreamcast, and I do still play it. There are a number. I mean, they didn't have very many games, but they had a really good set for what was there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone listening, you need to go out and buy. Well, for Sonic, you need to buy Sonic 1, 2, 3, Colors. Well, no, not Colors. I mean, you can buy Colors if you want, but CD and Adventure 1. for Sonic. And then to support Sega more, you need to buy Jet Set Radio Future when it comes out this summer. And buy Vanquish. You'll enjoy that. And if you have a PS3, buy Yakuza. I'm just giving them great advice on what game.
Sure, yeah. Well, with Sonic, if you haven't experienced much with the 2D, the easiest thing to do if you want to make it happen cheap is buy the Sonic Mega Collection, which you can get on PS2 or GameCube. And if you have one of the older Wii's, it's backwards compatible for GameCube. I think I've heard that the newer Wii's that are coming out are no longer backwards compatible. I could be wrong about that.
I've heard
that. And then the other thing you want to get is the Sonic Gems collection, because that has Sonic CD on it, and is the only, as far as I know, the only ported version of Sonic CD that there is. I don't think anything else has ever ported it. So that's what you gotta have to play that. And you can play Sonic 1 through Sonic and Knuckles if you get the Sonic collection for DS.
Well,
if you want to play it handheld, that way.
You can buy CD directly off of 360.
Oh, can you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Sonic 1 and 2. And
Excuse me, I didn't know that they'd done that. That's very cool.
Yeah, I got Sonic 1, 2, and CD on my PSN, and I know they're also available on 360.
Great. Thank you for that. I had no idea they did that. That's awesome.
So, yeah, and they're all worth the money. I mean, they're
absolutely.
They're still good today, because I played them recently, and I wouldn't lie to you people.
And again, they're really easy and really cheap to get.
Yeah.
There's lots of very cheap ways to get those. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. King, thanks a lot for filling in.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Really awesome to have you on. It's always fun to talk Sonic, dude.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see everybody next time. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm King.
Have fun. See you later.